Use the force, Luke. Let go.
The force is strong, Desmond.
Luke, trust me.
Let's go! Oh my gosh, that clip from Star Wars just got me so hyped. I cannot believe it, you guys. I sent the proj. I sent the Force. The Force was strong in this one just a couple of days ago, and I'm still riding high on the send. I think I'll probably be riding high on the send for quite a while. It's been a 14-month process, maybe even a little bit longer, from the first episode of The Road to 13. It's been 14 months as I've been working on this particular 13A, the Force, but I dabbled in other 13s before that. So we've been on this road for a while, all of us here. And Coach Hörst, who has been my Obi-Wan Kenobi throughout this whole journey to the Dagobah system. I don't know Star Wars all that well. I should probably lighten up on all the Star Wars references, because I'm sure there's 1 or 1,000 of you listening right now that are like, no, that wasn't the correct pronunciation of the Dagobah system. Dagobah system's where Yoda is, right? God, see, here I am. Now I'm going down the rabbit hole into Star Wars. Let's not focus on Star Wars. Let's focus on the Force. And I'm talking about the route, not the inner power. But I did channel some inner force in order to send the Force, and I'm excited to share that with you. The send is still fresh, and I just wanted to try to rush out a Road to 13 episode, a final Road to 13A, arrival at the destination, or just one exit on this road that's going to continue for very long. In fact, I'm probably going to hop on a new road, which is like the Road to 512 for the rest of the season. But let's talk with Eric Hörst about that. Obi-Wan Hörst and I met up at Miguel's just after I managed to clip the chains on the Mega Proj, and I hadn't told him. I didn't send him a text, and so I actually hit record on my little voice recorder thing, set it on a table at Miguel's, as we do often after many sessions out at the Red. We'll sit at a picnic table while people are shooting hoops on the basketball court, have a cold beer, have some delicious pizza, and relive the glory days or the struggles or whatever happened during that day. One of the best parts about climbing is, sitting with the crew afterwards and kind of dissecting the whole experience. And that's just one of the best parts of climbing in general, is being able to share it with people. So I grabbed Eric, and Eric was joined by his son, Jonathan Hörst, absolute crusher. Going to have him on the show here coming up and talk about all the great stuff that he's been working on. But Eric and John were out climbing, and in a different area. I was out at the dark side, and we met up at Miguel's, and I got to share the great news with Coach Eric Hörst, who has been just the best supporter and believer of mine in this kind of wild, thing that I decided to take on. I mean, it was only a few years ago I was trying to break into 5'11", and Jonathan and Eric sat down. I got to share the good news, which you're about to hear. And so you can just be a fly on the wall. It's like a 10-minute conversation that we had where we just kind of, do a little play-by-play on how it went for me on the Force and maybe what I should be thinking about doing next, because it's relatively early season right now. I didn't think that I would actually clip the chains this early into the process. I actually sent it on my first official red point go of the season. I'd been doing some low pointing and, just kind of sussing out beta up top, as you all know if you've been following along. And then I decided to try from the ground, mainly because Eric kind of yelled at me on a text because I was going to keep low point. I was going to low point one more bolt lower. And he was like, "You're fit, you're ready, just start red point attempts." And so I did. I was like, okay, let's just see how high I can get. Let's kind of do a fitness check-in. And then I ended up sending, and it was such a cool feeling. I'll get more into this. I want to cut to our conversation here at Miguel's so you can just experience a little bit of the, the send glow, if you will. And then after we come out of that conversation in 10 minutes, I'll do a little bit of a reflection, I guess, on what the process has been like and what I'm going to be up to next. And yeah, anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being along on this Road to 13A with me. I've just gotten so many kind and thoughtful and stoked messages from you all, whether you're in the Patreon community, and we've had a good group chat going over there, or on Instagram. I've heard from a lot of former guests of the show, people I idolize as rock climbers. That's just been incredibly fulfilling and surprising and rewarding to have them reach out and congratulate me, and then to hear from all of you in the community. You're the best. I really appreciate it. So, okay, let's dive in here at Miguel's, and then on the other side, I'll do a little bit more reflecting.
Let's go, man.
Good, bro.
How'd it go today?
Good to see you. Coach, Ascent.
No shot. Oh my God. I was debating him like just this week, like you wanted to low point more. And I'm like, what's the point of low pointing from Bolt 2?
Yeah.
Right?
First red point go of the season. Just to the chains. Let's go.
Oh my gosh. That is huge, Ryan.
Just fired it, dude.
I knew it would happen.
I bolted it, and it felt terrible. Everything felt terrible. I was like, what? Because I hadn't done the lower part because of the lumbrical and all that. And I was like, what are these pockets or whatever? And I lowered down, I rested an hour, and I hopped on, and I just fired it. It was the shortest I've ever been on the route. I barely rested. I just felt amazing all the way up.
It's called low gravity day.
Yeah. I mean, the conditions were good.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was.
But it's the first red point go of the season.
Yeah, amazing.
So what's your next project?
Classic.
I knew
we can talk about that now.
I knew it was going to happen fast because the last time we climbed together, 2 weeks ago, you were in way better shape than 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And so you had been doing everything we had talked about.
Yep.
And then you added in the 30-30s just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I was like
intervals.
topping up the intervals of 30-30s, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I climbed at Torrent and just did a ton of volume. Like flashed everything up to 11D, worked on the insane 12A/12C bare metal team.
And then 2 rest days before today?
2 rest days, and then I just felt good, man. I got like a lot of good movement on rock and was doing like on-sighting stuff and just, I mean, it was the battle at the top. I got this new beta where I threw a heel hook and I come into that pocket sequence, and I did the huck.
Into like the little hook.
Into the little hooker and a little threader, and I just kept that body tension and bared down. And
when you stick that, it should.
Yeah,
you should be
I
going
stuck
to the
that, and there's like you still have to be able to like hold it enough to get to that next like jug, and then it's just too
and not be too excited to do something stupid.
I couldn't believe it. And the crew was psyched. I was really busy out there today. Good people. Dave Scott and Audrey Scott were out there. Dave was catching me, and then like just like a bunch of good people, and they were like lifting me up. I was the only one out, and they were like, "Let's go!" And I barely rested. It was wild. I barely rested.
That's called having good aerobic fitness. That feeling at the red when you aren't getting pumped anymore, or you're not getting that like 10 out of 10 pump.
Yeah. I never felt that last season.
Yeah, when you can climb through a pump, you're in Red River shape. And that's kind of what anybody, no matter what level they're climbing, whether it's 5'11 or 5'14, on your project routes, when you can climb through the pump, it's evidence of good aerobic fitness. And of course, you worked the route so much that, you had high level and nuance and efficiency.
Very efficient. Every move, like I recorded it, and I haven't even watched it yet, but like every move just felt like perfect.
Yeah.
Just like reaching through. I just execute. It was so good, you guys. I couldn't even believe it though. Like I clipped the chains. I was like, what just happened?
How limited?
It was the first red point go, and I think that was another thing too, which is like I didn't feel any pressure.
Yeah.
Because like this wasn't like mid-December. Okay, best conditions.
Right.
I keep popping at the chains. It was like, well, it's my first red point go.
Yeah.
So let's just see if I can high point.
Yeah.
And I was pretty limited at the top.
Yeah.
Like. Not limit as in like I'm like the forearm's exploding and it's a fight. It was more like that last move where you have to stick that little threader and hold the body tension. It still feels kind of low percentage for me,
Coming out a little bit.
Like I was kind of sagging out, but I'll take a look at the video. Like it didn't feel desperate. It felt the most locked it's ever felt.
Yeah, that is so.
Yeah.
Oh, that is amazing.
It was so good. I felt so good.
I had this instinct that it was going to happen this month, whereas us talking in recent weeks, it seemed like you were ramping up for a December send. Like you had this longer timeline, and I was envisioning, like,
sooner.
Like I talked to you last week and said, it's time to start red pointing. And you're like, no, maybe I want to low point again.
Thank you.
And so I'm glad you started from the ground today.
Well, that was good advice because honestly, I think I would have come out today and pulled through the first couple of bolts because of the pockety stuff down low and just tried to low point just to get more confidence for the top. And I mean, you basically yelled at me in that text. You were like, you need to start red pointing now. And then lo and behold, the first RP just goes. Oh, guys, it felt so good.
Well, now you got a whole season. You have all of the good conditions in front of you.
I don't even know what to do with it. I mean, the other goals were like, I want to flash a 12A, which I think I'll do. And then you were just talking about?
I would like to actually see you on site at 12A.
All right.
Because that's something I've talked about for years, is a well-developed climber, the difference between their on-site grade and their red point grade should be 3 to 4 letters.
Right. And I've done
and for you
a
it's
few
actually
11Ds.
Right. So for you it's actually now 5 letters.
Right.
11D
so
on-site.
I need to do a 12A to kind of keep track with your theory there, or your recommendation.
So Ryan, before you
find it?
bite into your victory pizza there, let's do an official toast here.
Cheers.
The Big Send. When did this journey start? 15 months ago?
It was summer of 2023, or kind of late summer. I guess it was early fall, kind of when I was really started. Like my first go on the Force was, I think, September 2023.
But we talked about route selection.
Our
and
first
everything.
episode was summer,
Right.
I think, maybe even earlier than that. So, well, cheers. Yeah, and cheers to you, Coach. I mean, honestly, the biggest takeaway from all of this is like the crew, the people, your help. Thomas, I called Thomas right away. I knew I would see you, so I had to call Thomas because
Did
he
you call Kara?
supported me. I haven't even told Kara.
Oh my God.
I haven't told the wife.
You hasn't told the wife.
I called Thomas, and I've told you. You're the two people that know. I'm going to tell Kara and the kids when I get home.
Yeah,
that's
good.
Excited.
That's good.
Just funny,
Yeah.
at breakfast this morning, my kids were like, "You like rock climbing more than us?" Because I was like, "I'm going back out to the red," and I was like, "Yeah, in November that's true, but every other month I like you guys more."
When you left the house this morning, had you already decided you were going to give it a red point go, or were you still on the fence in terms of low pointing or red pointing?
No, I had decided because you were so adamant
Okay.
that but I didn't put pressure on it. Like for me in my mind, it was going to be like, I'm going to give a red point go, but really what it's going to be is like a check-in on where my fitness is at this point.
Yep.
You know, can I make it to the last bolt? Can I make it past the last bolt? And then I just fired it, and like it's so interesting. I don't feel like I'm that much more fit than last year, but clearly I am.
You are.
The training is paying off,
And you're more efficient. You have the boulder problem really wired.
yeah, that felt great.
So that you can just not hesitate. That's so important. When you're climbing at your limit, is to be very confident in your beta, and just you get there and you execute rather than having any thought
Right.
of like, oh, maybe I should do this or do that.
And I barely rested before that. I just kind of fired into it, recovered well, kept moving. I'll tell you what, you guys were out today, like best conditions of the year today. You know, it was probably
See, now we were in the
55 degrees at the dark
Yeah.
side, and there was a breeze.
in the shade.
God.
We
It was
were
primo. Yeah, low humidity.
we were in the sun climbing with our shirts off.
Oh, I bet it was
and
hot in
actually
the-
greasing on some holds. Yeah.
When Dave and Audrey came over from Solar, they warmed up at Solar Collector. I got here late because I had to drop the kids off at school. And they said it was like sweat. They were like, it's two different worlds. Like Solar Collector was baking in the sun. So I get that, but now it's early enough. Oh, I was thinking Stunning the Hog could be a fun one. I haven't been on that.
Heard of it? I don't know where that is.
Eric did that last year. It's a 12D at left flank, just left of Sex Farm.
yes.
It's like steep and punchy.
Old school Porter Gerard route. Basically a boulder problem, but powerful.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? You think I should focus on the 12A?
Well, I think if we meet up next time you're here, you could take the 12A on site and check that box in one day. So I don't
that'd be
think
cool.
I don't think that's like a big time consuming thing for
I mean,
you.
it's not a gimme. I'll tell you what. Like on that 11D this weekend, I gave it all I had. I mean, I was redlining. But if I warm up well and I get the right one and I get sprayed down, it feels different.
At a lot of climbing areas, 11D to 12A is not a big jump because those 11Ds are kind of often compressed
You're right.
into the top of the grade scale.
Sometimes harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, but after that, like I think I kind of want to have some fun. I mean, I did get on Tuna Town. I liked that a lot. There's some 12Cs that I'd like to clean up, like Malice and
Right.
Where's
Well-
the Beef looks cool, but I don't know. I don't know if I
think
jump
we-
into a project.
I think we talked about that this summer, is that after you send this, rather than just getting right back on another long haul project, it was time to build out that pyramid. And for you, building that out would be 12 Bs and 12 Cs.
Yeah. I've done a bunch of Bs, but I've only done one C and one D.
And in doing that, I think you now have the fitness and the skill and the experience that some of those Bs might be second goes potentially, which I'm a huge fan of developing that second go skill.
Well, that was Babyface. Yeah. Babyface was kind of a second go. I mean, I did like a half a go in the summer and just got worked by it, and then second goed it with you the other day. Yeah, I don't know. I'm psyched, you guys. I feel good. There's no pressure now. I'm just going to probably enjoy myself and have a fun season. I don't know. What a weird thing. You guys have sent a lot more big things than I have. Do you like to... I think it's such a climber thing to be like, you hit the dirt and you're like, what's next? But like, what do you...
I think given how early it is in the season, you can warrant picking up, a new project. Maybe not
on the side.
Not like the force sized, but something that takes multiple sessions.
Dabble in it and either put it down or save it for the spring or something like that, but also get out and climb.
Yeah.
Clip some chains. I am excited to clip some chains. God, I've been working so hard, you guys, and it just feels amazing. I just felt such joy when I hit the ground. I could not believe it.
That's the wonderful thing about climbing, and every climber can relate to that. A beginner setting their first 5.8 or 5.9, or a pro climber sending the next grade, 15B or whatever.
Yep.
It's the same feeling. It's kind of when you send that first of a next level grade. That's kind of the Super Bowl of climbing in terms of...
I did feel that. I did feel like the explosion of emotion when I clipped the anchors at the top and I was like picking off the wall and screaming and like... That's what you see Adam Ondra do. When he does something big, he's kicking and he's screaming and he's pumping his fist and like... I did somebody else's warm-up today. There was somebody that came on after me and warmed up on that to go over to swing line. And so it's not like in the scheme of things anything spectacular, but for me, that explosion, that like fulfillment of all the hard work, it was so raw. God, it's the best feeling. I cannot believe it went down first go. You believed in me, Coach. You believed. You were ready. You knew I was ready.
One of the things I tell people, and myself, is trust the process. Yeah. After a few years of climbing or projecting, you learn the process, and it's our human nature to want to rush the process, but some things just take time.
Probably 2 weeks ago, I went out and I did do some low pointing from like the fourth bolt, and I did it twice in a row. And so that's after the boulder problem, but it felt so good that I hiked out, and when I was hiking out, I felt sad because I could tell that it was coming to a close. I could tell that I was going to send. There's a higher level of confidence and optimism this season than ever last season, even as I was getting close at the end. And there's like a little bit of a sadness because I've spent so much time on that route, and it's been such a learning process, and it's taught me so much, and the crew there is so good. Like, I mean, I'm sure I'll find it again on the next one, but like, yeah, it was so interesting. Like, I all of a sudden wasn't in a rush for it to be over, and then it was.
Oh man, that was so special. It was so cool to be able to meet up with Eric like that at Miguel's just after doing the thing, because Eric and I we've been friends for years now, but I actually reached out to Eric for the first time just as a fan of his Training for Climbing podcast and website and all of his books and all of that. When I was trying to break into 512, and I reached out to him, and he was really helpful and actually helped me to write a little training plan, and it got me going. And so to have him as my coach getting into 512, to then become my friend and collaborator on this Road to 13A series and be able to celebrate it in that way was really, really special. I owe Eric a massive, massive amount of pizza, I guess. That's how you pay people back in the climbing world. You pay them back in pizza. So Eric, the next pizza's on me over at Miguel's, and was so cool to be able to share that with him and John, and then even talk about what's next. So what is next? I don't know. I'll probably I'll put more thought around this in one of my monthly plog episodes, which are available to everybody, by the way. They're up on Patreon. I only release them on Patreon, but if you are not a Patreon member, like if you don't want to pay for it or you can't, there's a free tier. You can join Patreon for free and then check in on those plogs. That's like where I talk about my monthly training and goals and all of that. So I'll dig more into that probably at the end of the month, but I do think I'll take Coach's advice, try to flash a 12A, and then backfill a bunch of fun 512s, and hopefully ride this fitness for another 6 weeks or so, and then I'll get into a winter training block, which I'm psyched on as well. The psych is high over here, regardless of what's happening. I just feel very, very proud and grateful for this, how this process has gone. I've just learned a lot. And as I mentioned at the end there of our conversation, there was like a little twinge of sadness. But I think maybe I'll just go back to the dark side and hop on it again one of these days. The route's not going anywhere. It's so classic. I don't feel that like unsend thing. As you know, some people don't want to get on the things that they've done because they don't want to unsend it. But for really special projects, really, really amazing routes, I certainly don't care about that. So I imagine I'll find myself back on the force at some point in time. But between now and then, I'm going to go have fun on a bunch of other things. And, you know, if I reflect on kind of why this season felt a lot different than last season, there's a lot of things that went into it. You know, obviously, having spent a season on the route, it was the biggest thing. The biggest advantage was knowing the moves. You know, last year at this time, I had just done all the moves, you know, just like on a bolt to bolt. And so this year I started with a lot more knowledge and confidence on my ability to climb the route and my, I don't know, the proprioception or just the muscle memory of a lot of those sequences. So I think that was like the biggest advantage. But then, man, I got freaking serious about my routine over the past 6 months or so. And that's, you know, the full routine, taking care of my sleep, taking care of my nutrition, bringing in some supplements. Like I had that episode with Dr. Thomas Cunningham, the Pro Clinic, and we talked about beta-alanine and citrulline malate and beetroot and these things that might help me with a little bit more recovery and a little bit better endurance on the route. And then I was training like a madman. So worked with Coach Nate Drolet, of course, Eric Hörst, and some others, you know, people that I've talked to on the show, guests of the show and coaches who've all just been like wonderful supporters and sounding boards. But for the most part, I programmed my training myself, you know, with input from really smart people, but I programmed my training myself. I used my Crimped app and, you know, looked ahead at my week and said, okay, here's the things that I want to do. And then I was, you know, pretty disciplined about doing those things. Like if I hadn't gotten something done after I put the kids to bed at night, I'd go do that thing. You know, usually I would maybe watch some TV with my wife and unwind, or come down to the podcast closet and try to get an episode going. But if I saw those workouts unchecked, I was very motivated to check them off. So I'm really proud of the discipline that I brought into this season. And it's probably, you know, not one thing that led to me successfully getting to the top of the hardest route I've ever done. There's probably 20 things or 30 things. But as I mentioned in my Instagram post, I think maybe the most important thing and certainly the most memorable aspect of all of this are the people. It's just the crew, the Louisville crew that I got here, where we train together and we're on a text group and we get out to the red as much as we can, the support, and also like the encouragement, the almost competitive encouragement, because they're all stronger climbers than me. So like I felt like really motivated to try hard, to try to keep up. It's just been awesome sharing this experience with them and alongside them. And then, man, at the crag, I'm going to post a video. I'm going to post a reel. Maybe it's out by the time this comes out. I'm going to post a reel of the send, just like of the top section, like the last minute of the climb. And I knew 2 people at the crag. Dave Scott was on belay, and Audrey Scott, his wife, was cheering me on. You can hear her screaming for me. But then there were like 10 or 12 other climbers there that I, you know, maybe had seen around at the crag or whatever, but like we're not like friends, direct friends. I didn't know them per se, aside from just being part of the climbing community. And it was so cool. I was very aware on the climb of the support. And, you know, sometimes like when you're climbing something, you drop into that flow state, like everything kind of goes quiet and you're like in, you know, like this timeless space. That was not the case for this. I was actually very present for the climb. I even got up to the first rest, the second rest, if you will. Like after doing the hard boulder problem, that low like V5, I got up to the rest and I was like talking with some of them down there. I was like, oh man, that breeze feels really good. And yeah, I just didn't feel like the I don't know, like the anxiety focus or whatever. Like sometimes, you know, when you're really anxious about something, you're just like, I need to focus. this was like, I was just having fun. Everything felt good and I was smiling and chatting down. But then when I punched into that last section, as you'll see in the video that I post, the support from the ground was freaking mega. I mean, it no doubt was like aid. They aided me up that last, 15 feet, those really hard red point moves, cheering for me, telling me to breathe and keep tight and you're looking good. And then, clapping when I got to the top. I mean, that's the best part. It wasn't the clipping the chains. It wasn't doing the route. It was being able to share it. And then I'm telling you, like 100% honestly, my feet hit the dirt and somebody handed me a beer. Like this was just like a guy at the crag. I forgot his name, Colin maybe? Guy at crag who handed me a beer the second my feet hit the ground. Thank you. That was so cool. And God, it was just such a special experience. And so I want to shout out all the people that were there, but also just like all of you guys. Thank you for being so supportive. It's kind of a weird thing to announce a big goal. I understand why a lot of climbers don't do it, because then you have people checking in on you. And I talked with Tim Emmett about this a few episodes ago, because he announced and has been very public with him working on his hardest thing, Aravea, the 9A out in Spain, which he just totally got rained out on. But he'll go back and I think he's going to give it hell sooner than later here. I understand why climbers don't share that, because it can increase the pressure. And I certainly have felt that over the last 14 months where there were days, never when I was at the route, but when I was at home and I was like feeling a little stressed out about it. And it never was like terrible because I was so psyched on the project, but there were moments where I was like, man, why did I launch a whole like podcast series about the road to 13A? But now I'm happy that I did. Like, reflecting back on it, I certainly don't regret it. There are going to be projects that I take on going forward that I'm not like super vocal about on this podcast, but I'm glad I shared this journey in this way, because not only did I get to benefit from all of the encouragement from everybody online and in person, people, I'll be walking around totally different crag and people will be like, hey, how's it going on the force? And I always liked that's always been the best. But also I've heard from a lot of you now, as I'm wrapping up this first kind of installment of the road to 13A, if you will, that this has been helpful for you, that me sharing my ups and downs and my process and struggles and breakthroughs and all of that's had some value to you, as most of you are probably in the same boat as me, which is just like a weekend warrior. I'm climbing because I love it. I'm psyched on it. It's a great release from stresses of work and family life and global political events and all of that. And so, I can get outside once or twice a week. I can get to the gym a couple times a week. And I think a lot of you who are listening right now are probably in that same boat. And to know that this journey, as sometimes uncomfortably public as it's been, has been helpful or entertaining or just enjoyable for you, means a lot to me. So I will wrap this up now. Now I'm blathering, but more on this and like more specifically on what I think really unlocked this new level of performance for me. I'll talk more about that in my monthly plog episode that'll come out in a couple of weeks. And until then, I hope that you are enjoying the struggle. I hope your training and your climbing are going great. And let's just keep going out there and having fun. Let's give it hell.